Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Security and Sandwiches session hosted by Stone Security. My name is Adam. I'll be your tour guide today. Before we kick off today's topic, there's a couple of housekeeping items to kind of share and just go over. The first is lunch credits for today will be sent to the email where you registered to attend following the conclusion of our session. Next is, let me share my screen here, turn that on for you. All right, so the next one is our website. If you haven't been here before or aren't familiar with it, this is a great resource to keep in touch with Stone, see what's going on, subscribe to our newsletter over here on the left-hand side. If English is not your default language, we've got a couple language options down on the bottom left. And you can always also chat with us directly through the chat here. And this does actually go to live people. It's not a chat bot. It'll go to a small team that answers those questions. Also, all of our Security and Sandwiches videos, as well as other videos that we're making, end up in our YouTube channel. So if you need to come back and refer to these again later, this is where you will find those. It's a great resource. There's a lot of knowledge, tips and tricks there, so come check that out. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button. The more interactions we get, the more subscribers we get, the more content we can deliver because we know that content is being used and is becoming worthwhile. So please subscribe to that, and that will definitely help us out. Okay. Speaking of our website, we have an event coming up called Techtober, and you can get some details on this on the events section of our website, as well as Patrick's going to drop some links in the chat. But Techtober is Stone Security's largest event of the year, where we bring in manufacturing partners, we bring in security experts, and we have conversations about what's happening in the industry, what's coming next, how we can better utilize the systems. And this will be both an in-person event at the Global Technology Center in Las Vegas, as well as we will be doing a live stream to YouTube for that as well. So whether you want to come in person, there's a way to register for that, or if you want to watch the live stream, there's a way to pre-register for that as well. And we'd love for you to join us. Okay. And lastly, as we go through, Techtober is August 30th. I skipped over the date in my notes. So October 30th, and it's always going to be October, generally towards the end of the month is when we've done it the last couple years. If you have questions or comments, please drop those in the chat. Both myself and Patrick are kind of watching that to make sure that we cover and answer those questions. I want to try to also, as I go through the agenda that I've planned, try to tailor some of that to the questions and to your needs as well. So today we're going to be talking about Lenel S2 OnGuard, and we're going to be looking at some of the configuration steps that you might come across in setting up a new system. Now, we could spend easily 2 days going over these topics and talking about these things. So this is not going to be a comprehensive overview of these. This is just going to be that. It's going to be an overview of these things. Hopefully enough information to kind of get you into the process and started in the right direction. So as always, if there's anything that we can do to help you with your systems, please reach out to one of our sales reps, or you can reach out to our support team. We've got a lot of knowledge and experts inside of Stone. Lenel S2 is the only access control platform we do. Milestone is the only VMS that we do. And so that allows us to really become more expert in these products and specialize in them instead of having to learn 10, 15 different things. So with that, let's get kicked off and started. So let's first start with the console. OnGuard is a Windows server-based access control platform. So it does require a server to run, And that server is going to run Windows, and then there's an application to install on that. Within that ecosystem, there are both web console pages as well as thick clients. So you can think of it like thin versus thick client, where the thick client is software that's physically installed on your workstation, and the thin clients are things that you can launch in a browser. Okay, the console has the web console has a landing page where we get this view, and all these tiles are going to link us to different things. So the ones that we're going to be focusing on today are two of these dark blue tiles. We're going to be looking at alarm monitoring and system administration, but mostly we're going to be spending time in system administration. The reason I wanted to point this out to you is because when you log into the web console, these all become links to the applications. And so if I click on system administration, it's going to launch system administration and do the login part for me. So without the web console, you'd have to do a, for example, I can log off here. So you would have to log into each application by itself. But using the links, I can click system administration and it's going to open that and log me in automatically because it's passing those credentials over as it goes. So nice little trick in not having to type in and enter your password over and over and over again. Okay, next, so that's the thick versus the thin client. The couple things in system administration that are probably things to know before you get really started into it. The first is as we open different pages in system administration, they're going to open up as tabs across the bottom. So here's Cardholders. If I go to access levels, and then if we open another one, we'll do Timezones. You can see that these start to stack up as tabs across the bottom of my page that I can jump to and toggle between pretty quickly. And then generally, there is a close button in the bottom right corner where you can close that tab, but there's not always one. For example, the holidays and time zones has one, but the Cardholders does not. So if Cardholders, you have to come up and hit the X in the top right corner. Now, make sure you hit the right one. You want the smaller X that's below everything else, and that will close just that window. Okay. There's also, let's go to readers and doors, and I'll show you a couple other things here. In OnGuard, when you are selecting an item, here I'm just going to click on Warehouse Man Door, and you see that line turns blue. The blue line is not the selection. The blue line is just a navigation aid, we'll call it. The selection is this checkbox on the icon off to the far left. All right. Some windows you can do multiple selects. In the readers and doors, you actually have to check a box that says multiple selection. But I can come and select multiples of these, and you'll notice they're not actually selected, okay? Because the checkbox does not exist on those. So just be aware, anytime you're selecting something in OnGuard, particularly in the system administration, you're going to want to click on the icon to hit that checkbox on the icon. All right, now we've got that multiple selection. Okay. Next is if there are fields that are grayed out that you want to modify, those are protected until you hit the modify button. So we're doing a multi-select right now. Let me uncheck that because I don't want to cause adverse effects. Let's do just a test door here. So I can hit modify, and that's going to unlock these fields, and now I can come in and modify them. So if you're looking at it going, man, why can't I make these changes? It's simply because look for that modify button or the add button to add a new element. Okay, that brings up the next thing is when you are adding something in OnGuard, there's two ways to do it. If you don't have anything selected and I hit add, I get a completely blank form that I have to fill out all of the details on. Sometimes this can be a good thing. Sometimes this can be extra unnecessary steps. So here's a little trick. I'll hit cancel. if I add in a door that has the, generally speaking, the settings and the fields that I want to create, additional doors for, if I select that door, I'm going to get everything filled out. If I hit add, it's going to copy as much of those details over as it can so that I can now start rolling out the next. So I could say my next door name and then just go and modify the few things that are needed to get me connected to that next door. We'll look at that in a little bit because we're actually going to add in a whole panel of 8 doors. All right, let's jump over now to kind of what you should look at if you're standing up a new system. And if you've already got an existing system, this is still good to know where these things are. It's good to review them periodically, make sure that things are configured the way that you want. But we're going to start off in the Administration tab under System Options. So what I do is when I install a new OnGuard, once everything is installed, this is the first place I'm coming. All right, and in this, we have several tabs across the top. So if we start here on the General System Options, you'll see everything's grayed out because it's protected. To make it a little bit easier to read and to show you different things, I'm going to hit Modify. So Logon Authorization Warning is the first thing we come across. This is, and you'll see it in some softwares where you sign in, and once you hit the OK, login, sign in button, whatever it is, you'll get a pop-up that gives you basically these terms and conditions that you have to agree to. By default, OnGuard is not going to present you with anything like that. You can do a standard message as well as a custom message. And the custom message is going to give you a box where you can go and modify and add in whatever you want. So whatever policies or terms of use you want to add into this, you can add what you want. Okay, you can even modify the button text. So you could change this to say agree or disagree, or whatever verbiage you want to say there. You could say confirm, whatever it needs to be. All right. And so that gives you the ability to add in kind of some on demand, I guess is the best way to say it, terms of use for somebody entering your system. Or even if somebody's trying to gain unauthorized access to your system, they would be presented with this message as well when they try to sign in through the typical sign-in process. So to show you what that looks like, I will hit OK. And what I'll do actually is I will sign off of my alarm monitoring. I'm going to go back to my console and I'm going to hit alarm monitoring, and it's going to sign me in, assuming I did it right. Maybe I need to close the application first. Okay, so alarm monitoring, it's going to open up on my other window here. I'll drag it up here. Okay, and it signed in for me. I didn't get the warning though, probably because I did the single sign-on. So maybe we're learning as we go. When you do the launching from here, you don't seem to get the message. But if I do alarm monitoring, we'll launch it normally. Okay, here's our login. And here's the authorization warning that we get. I hit cancel on the changes I made, so we still have the yes and no buttons. I can hit yes, and it's going to take me in. Okay. Moving through other options in there. So the rest of what's here is all related to services that OnGuard uses. And these can be on a single server. Everything can run on a single server. Or if you're in a larger system, this could be a distributed system, in which case you would see different elements for these. This is also where you can turn on and off FIPS mode. So if you need to run your system with FIPS, then you can turn on FIPS compliance or enforcement and set that up there. We also have, we're not going to look at all the tabs again. We could spend 2 days going through a lot of this stuff. But if we jump over to hardware settings, this is the next place to look. So all the panels have limitations to the storage that we have to balance a little bit. Now, the Series 3 panels introduced more storage. You know, the M series panels, the new blackboards coming out right now, they introduced even more storage. And so this is becoming less of a challenge. But back on the green boards, the Series 2 boards, this wasn't a problem. Then we had to kind of juggle and decide a little bit, okay, are we going to reduce the number of holidays that we have in order to increase the number of card holders? How are we going to balance out the capacities of our event? Okay. Minimize that back. Okay. So you can modify these up or down. There are limits. So unless I turn on some extended functions and features, 255 is the maximum number of holidays, the maximum number of time zones, the maximum number of access levels. Actually, access levels will go higher. Please, I hope you don't ever need 255 access levels. That just sounds nightmarish to manage. The maximum badge number length, so the physical number encoded on our card, how long is that? How many characters is that? Right, it's going to I think it defaults to actually maybe 8 or something like that, but you can come in and bump it up. 18 is the most. Any card number that's over 18, and you actually have to start leveraging the extended ID length in combination with the badge number. So both of those can be combined. If you have elevators, what's the maximum number of elevator floors that we want to support? It goes all the way up to 128. If you've only got 16 floors, maybe you turn this down, or if you've only got 8 floors, maybe you turn this down to 16. That's going to free up capacity in other areas of your system, of the controller, to accommodate larger values. Maximum number of card formats. Now, this is either 8 by default, or you can increase it to 16. We'll look at card formats later as well, and you'll see how this applies there. Now we get to the maximum access level assignments per badge. So how many access levels can a single badge have? I believe the default, I don't think I've changed this, the default's going to be 6 total, with any combination of 6 with no activation dates and 6 with activation dates. You can change and modify that as needed. So, all right, moving down, then we want to jump over to, all right, that's everything that I wanted to cover in system options. There are some anti-passback things. We're probably not going to cover anti-passback in today's session unless we just fly through this content. So, but I'm going to hit cancel because I don't want to commit any of those changes. All right, so let's jump over to now the cardholder options. And again, if any point along the way you've got questions, go ahead and just drop them in the chat, and we'll address them either at the end or we'll tackle them as we go. All right, so cardholder options is under administration, and then cardholder options. And this is where we're going to control settings pertaining to our cardholders. Things like the maximum active badges per cardholder. How many badges do you want a person to be able to have? I think the default is 3, so I've bumped this up to 5. There are pros and cons to where you might set this. There are some logical ways or reasons why you might set it higher. For example, if you have employees where everybody has a physical card, a fob for a keychain, all right, maybe they have a mobile credential, so we're already up to 3. Another one would be, do we have a tag on their vehicle? That could be 4, whatever it might be. So maybe we set this to 4, maybe we set it to 2. Setting it lower, though, is going to force a little bit more of a procedure. So if somebody loses a badge or they forget their badge and they have to come in and get a new one, if they're already at their limit of 2, for example, we can't add a third, or an operator or whoever's doing your badging couldn't issue a third badge without first removing or deactivating one of the existing badges. So if your organization has a tendency of just accumulating badges where you've got 4, 5, 6, 10 badges and you're not sure which ones are active, which ones are lost or stolen or deactivated, or which ones are even sitting at home on the counter, then you can lower this number, and that's going to kind of force some cleanup, I guess you could say, as new badges are created or as situations require. Okay, moving down through some of the other options. My apologies if this is hard to read in the Teams meeting. I tried to scale it as big as I could. Hopefully it'll be more readable too in the YouTube video. But anyway, so badge pin code generation. What if we require a pin? What kind of pin do we want to require? And this is going to be a global setting for all of your card holders. All right. So do we want a 4-digit pin, a 6-digit pin, or a 9-digit pin? Do we want that pin code to be automatically generated, or do we want to manually enter a pin? Even if it randomly generates a pin and then pre-fills the pin field for you, I believe you can still go and change that if your process is to let somebody enter their own pin. Unique pin code. Does this pin have to be unique to that person, or can they have a common pin with somebody else? And then are we going to allow the edit of a pin code? So not many keypads out in the wild these days. Seems most everybody just uses a card, but a pin is a great way to enhance the security of your system. If somebody drops their card, their credential, and it's picked up by somebody else, anywhere where there is a card and pin requirement to get through a door, they wouldn't be able to do that because they wouldn't know the pin. All right, this is another one of my favorite features. Use or lose badge number of days. So if you have a badge, and right now it's set to 0, so this will not take effect. I can have a badge. That badge could be sitting at home on my dresser, not used for infinite number of days, and nothing will ever happen to that badge. If I have an expiration date set on that badge, then yes, once we get to that expiration date, that badge will deactivate. But this is really great to say, if I have a badge that's getting used on a daily basis, and then all of a sudden it's not used for 30 days or whatever number of days we set here, then once we reach that threshold, that badge is going to change its status. And it can change to any badge status that you have set here. So these are just the default: lost, returned, or terminated. You could, if you want, create a new badge status called auto expire or 30-day, whatever, however you want to name that. You can give it a name. You could set that. And so we'll just say, for example, lost. So after 30 days, if that badge is not used within that 30-day period, then that badge status will be updated to lost, which will now deactivate that badge. Okay. Badge deactivation status after deactivation date, new badge status is, again, this is the same thing. So this has to do with the activation and deactivation dates. Think of it, the expiration date of that badge. What happens once we hit that? So you could create a status called expired or whatever you want and select that. And that's just going to give you information on what those are. Now, let's see here. I didn't look at this beforehand. I think it's under list builder, badge status, active, lost, returned, terminated. So we could add one called expired. We could add one called not used, expired. And maybe this one, instead of just calling it expired, we say activation date. Or I guess technically it would be deactivation date. Okay, so we can create those. Now they may, okay, I wasn't sure if they'd pop up in that list or if I'd have to reload the page to get them to show up. So we could say for our deactivation, expired deactivation date. And on our use it or lose it, we can say not used expired. Okay, multimedia is going to be any thumbnails or photos that you have uploaded. You really want this enabled. What it's going to do is, instead of always having to load the full resolution picture that you've attached to that person, this will allow OnGuard to create a thumbnail of that and then use that thumbnail in parts of the application where that makes sense. So this is really a good thing to keep selected. And let's see. Do we want to use times for badge activation or deactivation dates? If we leave that unchecked, we're just using dates. If we have it checked, we're using dates and times. And then that's, I think, let's see. Yeah, the rest that we'll cover today from here. Moving down though, so general cardholder options, if we look at the badge ID allocation, this is going to, on a new install, it's going to default to automatic. And so what automatic is going to do is it's going to take the last used badge number and it's going to auto increment it by 1. And so in some workflows, this is a really nice feature. In other workflows, this becomes a real nuisance, because what this is doing is it's assuming that you're going to take each badge, new badge in sequence out of the box, or if you've got some kind of a printer, whatever it might be. And if somebody grabs from the back of the box or grabs from the middle of the box, whatever the scenario is, like I've got a box right here. Okay, well, am I going to grab from the front? Am I going to grab from the back? When you get down to a point, they just lay flat in the box, and so you don't know which end you're grabbing off of. So that may work for some workflows, and again, it may not work for others. I tend to set up as manual entry, and then anytime I create a card holder, it's going to prompt me to put in that badge number. If you do automatic, then you can come over to ID ranges and you can say, here are the ranges of the boxes of credentials that I have. We're going to start at 1,000 and I have 100 badges, and it's going to pre-fill that last ID, or vice versa. If I know my first and end, okay, then we can put that in and it's going to do the count. Generally they don't come in random numbers like that. So we'd say 199, that'd be a box of 1,000. And we could add that to our list. And now that's going to be part of what, the calculations used in determining what badge numbers we have, what is next, what was the last one we used, and so on. Okay, but for our case, we're going to leave that manual, and we are going to allow it to be edited. There are other options there, depending on the credentials you're using or integrations that you may have. Like you could say from cardholder ID, which is the field. Cardholder ID is more like the employee ID, I guess you could say. And so if you are syncing data from a third party into OnGuard and you want to leverage a field to do that, you could select that field. You could say internal, or this one actually is a definable field. And so you can pull that information from somewhere else as well. Okay. Moving down. So those are like the main two things that on a new system we want to go and check. The other things, actually, I didn't want to quite close that yet. Let me pull that back up. So cardholder options. We're just going to build tabs across the bottom as we go. Next thing is card formats. So administration, card formats. So remember on the system options under hardware settings, we saw that there's the maximum number of 8 or 16 are the two selections. So those are going to be numbers 1 through 8 and then 9 through 16 if you selected for the 16 option. There are some additional smart card formats that are predefined in here. You can delete those if they're just annoying and in the way, or you can leave them. They're not counting against that 8 or 16. And there are some predefined formats in here as well. For example, if you're not using a magnetic format, you can delete that one and free up one of those slots. Wiegand format is going to be just that general 26-bit Wiegand, 64-bit Wiegand, 72-bit Wiegand, and then you can define some additional ones in here. For example, H10302, H10301, or whatever the format is. Building those formats sometimes can be a little tricky depending on the application. For example, if we'll do a really easy one. So we'll take the Wiegand format. It's a 26-bit with a facility code. And what I can do is I can say add. So remember, if nothing's selected and I say add, it's going to give me all the blank options, okay? If I select one of the existing ones and I say add, it's going to pre-fill most of those options. So we can call this Wiegand. We're going to do a 26-bit and facility code. We'll pick a random number for facility code. We'll say facility code 27. So change the facility code. And everything, because I selected that initial one, everything copied down. So I don't need to try to figure out or recall or look up what my start and end bits are for the facility code or the card number, the extended ID or issue code, or the parity bits. Now, parity is a way to check that the card is valid. You can just say don't use parity bits by putting those in as zeros, but that does make your cards more susceptible to being basically cloned. It doesn't make the card susceptible to being cloned, but it does make it easier to present a random set of bits and not have that checksum built into it to the reader. So where possible, please use parity bits. You will be better for it. But yeah, so we've got facility code starts at bit 1 and goes for 8 bits. Card number starts at bit 9, goes for 16 bits. And a 26-bit Wiegand doesn't use extended ID or issue code. And so we don't have those checked. So let's put those back to where they were, 13 and 13, and hit OK. And so there is our 26-bit Wiegand with a facility code 27. If we also, we go through a whole range, maybe we order the wrong box or we change credentials, we can say, okay, add, and maybe this one's going to be facility code 30. We can just simply make that easy change and hit add. Oops, got to give it a name. 26-bit FC30. And I like consistency, so I'll fix the space that I missed on there. And so there we've got those. So that's pretty easy to do. The hard part is knowing how to build the format in the first place. When I do one the first time, there's several ways to do this. Google's your friend in this, but also there is a way. We're not going to do it in this class. This is something that actually they teach in the LinLS2 certification program. But there is a way to read the raw binary data off of a card, and then you can start to reverse engineer what that card format is based off of that raw data. It also always helps to have the box that's showing us information about what those cards are. So don't toss your boxes until you're completely done with them. Not only will that help for building the card formats, but it also helps with the reordering the next series. H10302 doesn't require this box starts at this number, ends at this number with a facility code. They're randomly generated. They're non-repeated. So you just order the box of the quantity in that format. But others, for example, like H10301 is going to have a facility code, and you're going to order, I want this box to start at 1,000. And let's say I'm going to order 500, so it's going to be 1,000 to 1,499, which means when I order the next box, I have to specify that I need to start at 1,500 and go to 1,999. So managing those numbers can be a little bit of a chore. That's why the H10302 is one of our favorite credentials, because you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. Yeah. Okay. So that is card formats. Let's look at, okay, now we're going to start to get into kind of the fun part of it, I would say. What we've done so far is just the kind of the initial configuration of the system. Now let's start looking at how we actually get our devices in. So we're going to add an access panel. So I have here a L&L M2220 that I have already done the initial connection on. It's on the network, it's IP'd, and I created a user. So Stone, we can log in. There's a whole process to doing this part of it. You can take the panel, you can plug it in. It will generally pull the DHCP address, but then you got to find it, and you don't have credentials to sign into it if you needed to modify any settings. I will say on the new M series panels, there is a firmware bug right now with TLS. So if I say TLS required, and then we try to add it to OnGuard with TLS required, it's not going to talk. It's not all of them. There's a batch basically where I believe a cert was missed in the initial configuration. If you are having that issue though, where you're trying to set up TLS between your OnGuard software and the panel, and it's not working, reach out to our support team, because this is something that they can easily help with. It might take a couple days to get those certs from HID, because that's the cert that's missing, but it can be resolved and fixed. So right now, these default to say TLS if available, which means it's not going to be required or enforced. So, but generally for OnGuard, you want IP server. TLS is a good thing, so TLS required, except if it doesn't work, then roll that back for now, and then we'll help you get those certs figured out. Okay, but I just wanted to show you, so here's my network info. You can set static addresses, or you can use DHCP. My preference is DHCP with network reservations, so I don't have to worry about setting that on the device. I could preset it if I want based on the MAC address, plug it in, and it's going to come up where I want and expect. Okay, so let's actually go over to access control, access panels. And what we get is a window with multiple tabs across the top related to the different series of boards. Well, I guess it's not series, the different levels of boards. So there's the 4420, the 3300, the 2220, the 2210, the 500, and then there's an other section. So what I have is a M2220. So we'll come to the 2220 tab. Now I have in here two X2220s. So we're going to add now an M2220. Before I do though, I want to show you that on any of these panels, so for example, if we have a Series 2 2220, and that's in our list, you would be, if you ever had to take that hardware offline and replace it with, for example, an X2220 or an M2220, you don't have to delete that panel and re-add it. You can come and right click on it and you can promote a panel. Now, you cannot demote a panel. A panel can only be promoted. So just be careful not to do the wrong one. So we could take this is an X2220. So these are the options available to me that I could upgrade this panel to. I could do an M2220, an M3300, an M4420, or an X. I could still go X series, but it has to be a panel higher than what is there right now. So, all right, let's go ahead and add. So we're going to add. Now, I didn't have anything pre-selected, so it didn't pre-fill any of my values. Okay, for simplicity, I'm going to select my existing panel, which is an X2220. I am going to hit add, and that's going to pre-fill everything here. We're going to change the name. We'll just call this a test panel, or well, controller. All right, what type is it? This is an M2220. Anywhere in OnGuard where you see something referencing workstation, generally it's talking about what server is running the service that's going to communicate to this, or that's going to handle this. Where is this service located? Panels talk to OnGuard through the communication server or the communication service. In my case, it's all in one. So this is the host name for my OnGuard server. This panel we're talking to at address 0. We've already set the panel type. We can specify a time zone for that panel. I'm Pacific, and we do observe daylight savings. Next, we jump over to the next tab. Okay, so what is my IP address? 10.3.101.55 is my IP address for that panel. And I'm going to leave the default port of 3001. Secondary connection, we're going to skip. I only had, like, the X2220 only has a single IP interface, and so there's not a second connection for me to use there. Options. These options have to do with the features, the capabilities of the panel. And again, there's options here that will affect the balance of card holder capacity, event capacity, elevator floors, support, and everything. Just as we were looking for in that hardware settings, this is the other part of that equation. So some of these things are going to be pre-filled where you can't modify them. Okay, that's going to be based on the card type that you have selected. Okay, pin. Do we want this panel to have pin functionality? If I don't connect any pin readers to it, then we can say none. If I have keypad readers attached to it, then we would say, okay, 1 to 4 digit, 1 to 6 digit, 1 to 9 digit. That's going to impact how we use or how we allocate the storage on that panel. All right. OSDP biometrics. Are we leveraging OSDP biometrics? Are we leveraging an auxiliary module? Now, these options don't exist for every selection, but they reuse the same form generally. So, okay, how many card holders are we expecting to have? 5,000, 500, 50,000? How many assets are we intending this panel to be able to leverage? So you put in the values there. That also balances out and affects the event capacity. Okay, how many reader modules versus alarm panels? We could say everything is a reader module, so we could connect 32 downstream readers to this controller. Or if we want a mix of reader panels like 1320s, LNL 1320s, or input-output boards, the 1100 or 1200s, then we would want to modify this to account for those as well. So if I do 24, I could have 24 LNL 1320s, and I could have 8 I/O panels, and that would be my balance. All right. Storage, store expiration date. Date only. So not enforced is going to free up the most space. We take up a little bit of space with date only. We take up a little bit more space with date and time. So that just depends, what's the right selection. That depends on how you want your permissions to work. Do you want them to be granular to the time? Like, hey, contractor, your access to this space ends at, on Thursday the 28th at 5 p.m. Or do you just want to say Thursday the 28th, which would give them access all the way through 11:59 and 59 seconds? Okay, so date and time is what I want. Same thing on the activation date and time. And then here's some additional features. Timed anti-passback, store area anti-passback location, precision access. This is for reader inclusion. Elevator support. Do I have an elevator tied to this panel? If there's an elevator, now I have to account for floors and a bunch of other settings, even possibly tracking, floor tracking. So first card unlock. This is where a first card unlock is a feature where the door is locked. It's tied to a schedule to unlock. For example, we'll use typical retail office scenario. I want my front door to unlock at 8 a.m. But I don't want it to unlock if my receptionist or whoever's manning the front of the building hasn't shown up yet. So first card unlock is a rule set that's going to say, I want this door to unlock at 8 o'clock, but I don't want it to happen unless somebody with first card unlock authorization badges at the door and then unlock. So if they show up at 8:05, the door stays locked up until they badge at 8:05. Do we want that functionality enabled on our panel? Generally, yes. I don't have an elevator, so we'll turn off elevator support. Double card unlock toggle. Do I want somebody to be able to present and then 3 seconds later present a card again to have that toggle the lock? If we want that functionality, then we need to have that selected. TLS encryption. Do we want to encrypt the communication between the OnGuard software and the panel? If yes, then we leave that checked. This is the M series board that is from that batch where one of the certs is missing. So I'm going to uncheck that box so that we can successfully add our panel. Diagnostics is going to show you information from your panel. Now this is not showing the right panel right now. We have to hit a OK first. Web page users, what are the usernames that have access into the panel, and then any notes. So I could put in notes in here like this panel is located in the GTC lab, used for training, no TLS due to cert bug. You could put whatever notes you want in there, and now you've got that information to reference later. Now we hit OK. We need to assign a monitoring zone to this panel. Monitoring zones are basically a selection of hardware that you want a person to be able to monitor. So you could have a monitoring zone that is everything. You could have a monitoring zone that is just the location in Salt Lake. We could have a monitoring zone that's going to be just the location in Vegas. And so when different users with their different permissions log in, their permissions will be tied to a monitoring zone, and so they'll only be able to see the events happening from the zone they're assigned. Hopefully that makes sense. Here I'm going to select default and hit OK. That panel has been added, and now we show it here, test controller with an M2220. All right, anytime a panel is added, it's going to need generally two things. One is a download, and the other is we need to set the clock on the panel. All right, you'll notice our promote options are different here than what they were on the X2220. We've got 5 options here on the X2220 of what we could promote that to. On the M2220, again, because we have to promote to a higher function board, we can only go to the 3300 or the 4420. And there's no demoting. All right, let's jump over to alarm monitoring, because here we'll be able to see this new controller. Now, these icons have different states. Anything with a red X is offline, unintended offline. Anything with a black X is intended offline. For example, if I come here and I modify, and if I uncheck the online box, we will see this change to a black X instead of the red X. So black is somebody has manually done this, it's intended. A red X is going to be an unintended effect. All right, so it is online. It has the icon of kind of like a network tree where we've got a device with some sub-devices to it. That's what that icon is indicating, at least to me. Some people call it a bug or a spider. This does not have the encryption turned in. So you'll see on this panel here, the GTC OnGuard main, it's that same topology icon, that same panel controller icon, but it has a little padlock on it. So that padlock is saying this is an encrypted communication. This one is not. Okay, we also have a panel options mismatch. So let's go ahead and we can do this from here, download database, or we can do it from our system administration. Right click on it and we can say download. This operation will force a full system download to the access panels. Now, it's only the panel selected. Okay, so this isn't going to affect my other two panels, just the panel selected. This will temporarily prohibit cardholder access. Do you wish to continue? What we're doing is we're syncing our software and the panel, all those options, functions, capacities that we have set. To do that, it has to offline that panel so that it's not trying to process card reads and things at the same time. So anytime you do a download database, you are going to introduce a small disruption to anything connected to that device. So we'll say okay, and we'll come over to alarm monitoring, and we can start to see this happen. So here's the communication lost. And as it comes back up, so we have the red X, it's showing an unintended offline. So it's not talking to my panel right now. It is, but it's doing that sync in the background, so it's not in an operational state. Here it starts to come. Okay, so we had our communication lost, and then our panel download started, and a panel download complete. And you'll notice that it's not showing anymore the panel mismatch, the panel ID or panel options mismatch. It does show cabinet tamper. That's because the cabinet actually is open. And it's showing my firmware number, my revision, which is 2.040. A little trick, these firmwares don't show by default on everything. There is an option. Where is my toolbar? There it is. My toolbar was not in the right spot. Okay, so if we go to view, let's see. I believe it's under options and display device firmware revisions and control. So there's a couple different things here. We could display the controller capacity. So it's going to give us what our memory values are, as well as our card holders. So we've got 86 current card holders out of the 5,000 max. So if you need to check it where you're at, options, display controller capacity. Display device revisions. This is good for any downstream devices. You'll always get the firmware of the controller, but you can also see the firmware of the downstream devices. So my 1320s in this case, we're on 3.2.9, 3.2.9. We can also display serial numbers. So if you need to get a serial number for a support case or something, you don't have to go all the way out to the board or try to log into the web interface. You can get the serial number straight from here. And device series, so we can see what series these are. That's going to show, let's turn off some of these other things. So Series 3B, got a mix of Series 3 and Series 3Bs. Okay, so little trick on how to get more information on your panels. Generally, you're going to want to turn those off so that they are not adding to the list of everything that's trying to show. All right, so we have our controller. Our controller is online. I can come and I can do a update hardware status. I can do a download if I want, download database. I can do a set controller clock. Here we can also do a properties. This is going to show me the settings of that panel. So we have the name, the workstation it's attached to, it's online. We're not using TLS, we're using plain communication, unencrypted communication, the panel type, the firmware, the storage, the maximum number of card holders, my current card holder count. So again, another place to come and check that without having to turn on the inline options. You can just come and look at the panel. Do we have selective card holder download enabled? So if we have 5,000 card holder capacity, selective card holder download, what that's going to do is if we have more than 5,000 card holders, it's going to age out the oldest card holders. So if somebody hasn't been at that panel in 6 months, whatever, then it's going to age them out in favor of card holders who are more active on that panel. And so, and then if somebody's not on that panel, they come and badge, it will now, instead of being cached at the controller, it will have to reach out to the software element, the software layer, and say, hey, do you know who this person is? And it will authorize it or not from there. Now, let's add our doors. So we have our panel. Let's add doors. Let's see, got a question here. Is that system-wide change or user based on what you see in the panel for the firmware? I believe this is user. So most of the options here are user level. So if I say, show me the firmware revisions, that's not going to turn that on for everybody else. Another one, just since we're here, let's see here. It's the automatic visual notification. This is on by default. And so anytime an alarm happens, if I'm on another window, and for example, if I have a door forced or a panel goes offline, it's going to force alarm monitoring to the top to draw that to my attention. You can turn that off by unchecking the automatic visual notification. That is enabled by default, so might be convenient for you to uncheck that box. Okay, let's add doors. So for that, we want to go to Access Control, Readers and Doors. And you'll see my existing list of doors. We'll just add a new one. So we're going to say test door 1. Give it a name, whatever name makes sense. All right, now what panel is this door connected to? Which controller is this door connected to? We're going to build everything off of the test controller. What type of panel is this? Is it the onboard reader? So onboard to the my 2220? Yes. Okay, so we're going to build 8 doors here. What I have is 1 M2220 and 3 L&L 1320 series 3s. So we're going to build the onboard first. Okay. What is my reader output? Is this a Wiegand reader or is it an OSDP reader? Those are going to be the two main ones. Wiegand, we've talked about this before, but since we're here, Wiegand is a one-way communication where the panel will spit out whatever it needs to, but it doesn't care what's listening. Okay? Sorry, that's the wrong direction. The reader, as you swipe your badge, spits out the information, but it has no idea what's listening or who's listening. Okay? So it's one direction from the reader into the panel and software. OSDP adds the other direction to that equation, and it allows encryption. So you can have a fully encrypted communication pathway all the way from your reader to the panel to the software. All right. For this, my test panel is set up Wiegand. We're going to do that. But just know OSDP is where we really should be at. We've got OSDP readers set up on everything else. Just for this panel, it's all Wiegand. So let's see. With OSDP, I do want to point out that there are some additional settings here. You need to specify the baud rate to the reader, the address of the reader, and whether or not you're using secure channel. I think I'll put on the schedule to do a session on what it looks like to migrate from Wiegand to OSDP. I think that would be a helpful thing. I'll add that to the list. Okay, Wiegand. So we're doing the onboard reader. So the port is going to be the onboard port. Address is grayed out. IP port is grayed out. So all my only other option here is the reader number. This can be a little confusing because they're labeled reader 1, reader 2 on the panel. I didn't download my picture beforehand. Okay. So the panel labels them reader 1, reader port 1, and reader port 2. But that's not how OnGuard is going to work with it. Actually, I think, did that get emailed to me? No. Of course. Okay. Sorry, I was going to see if I could find the document. So OnGuard, everything starts at 0. 0 is 1. Sorry if that's confusing. So reader 1 is in OnGuard reader 0. Reader port 2 on the panel in OnGuard is reader 1. So you're just going to subtract 1 to make that transition. Okay, this is the first. We're going to call this test door 1, reader 0. And what do I want my online mode to be? So when my lock is online, active, everything's talking, working normally, what do I want that mode to be? Card and PIN, card only, card or PIN. The and versus or is very, very important there. And is going to be both required, or is going to be I can type in my PIN and get in, or I can swipe my card and get in. So and versus or, pay attention to that. Facility code only is going to be, I don't care what the card number is, as long as the facility code matches. This has always felt really insecure to me because how many times does facility code 90 get used across different buildings? How many times does facility code 27 get used across different buildings, across different companies, right? So all they would need is a matching card format and facility code, and they'd be able to get in. Locked means nobody is getting through, even with a valid badge. Now, they did add an override permissions to this. So if you have locked override permissions, you could still get through. But locked is going to basically mean nobody is intended to be coming through this door right now. Okay, that could be something for we don't want somebody going in after hours, or we don't want, we're in a lockdown state. We want to start restricting access. Unlocked means anybody can go through. The strike is activated. It's in free flow mode. Anybody can get in. Okay, so those are the different modes. I'm going to say card only for online. And for my offline, system's not working. Something's broken. I can't talk to my panel, or I can't talk to the board, the downstream board that this is wired into. What am I going to do? Card and PIN, card only, same options. This is where I see facility code used a lot. I see some people do unlocked, which means if my panel goes offline, all of a sudden my doors are now unlocked and people can move around at will. I like to leave it card only. And if things get really bad, this is where having a select few people with bypass keys is going to really come in handy. So that's mine. Pick what works best for your situation. Okay. Are we tying biometrics to this, a cipher to this? We're not going to cover those. But first card unlock. Remember how we had to enable that on the panel? Well, we have to also enable that on the reader. So first card unlock, yes, maybe we want that. And that's there. Okay, if we move over, we have held open times. This is how long the door can be held open before we throw a door held open alarm. If we need to give somebody extra held open time before, so maybe it's an ADA person, maybe it's the package delivery guy pushing a cart, maybe it's the mailman, whatever, maybe for extended times you want to give more. So we could say maybe our normal is 30 seconds and our extended time will say 60 seconds. Strike time is how long the lock will activate for. How long will we unlock the door? All right. So once I badge, I have 3 seconds to open the door before it relocks. Extended time, again, maybe ADA, package, delivery, who knows? Maybe you set that a little bit longer. Now, this strike setting here, cutoff on close, this affects the strike times. So we can just say, I've got 3 seconds to open that door. Once I open that door, keep it unlocked the entire time until that door recloses. That is going to be cut off on close. The other option is cut off on open. So strike time 3 seconds, I badge, I have 3 seconds to open the door. Once I open the door, based on my door contact, my DSM, once I open the door, it's now going to relock the lock. Okay. Different situations might require one over the other. Personally, I like the cutoff on open so that as soon as that door is triggered as open, that lock is going to relock. Different things like maybe a strike in the door jamb, maybe you want to treat that different from a electronic handle versus a crash bar, you know. Pick what's best for you, or versus a mag. Okay, this do not activate strike on Rex. So if you have a motion Rex or a button Rex, when that button is pushed or when that motion is activated, do I want to activate my strike? If it is a free flow exit and you're using, for example, like a handset or a crash bar or a strike in the door jamb, then you don't need the strike firing every time somebody walks up to it, or because they can exit anyway, because that's going to be free. Well, you know, per fire code should be free egress to exit the building. If it's a mag, then you want that mag to deactivate when somebody trips your motion Rex. So different locks, different situations, different egress is going to determine how you set up these two options. Okay, keypad. Does this reader have a keypad? No. Yes. It's, you know, what's the format for it? It's a 4-bit. It's an 8-bit. Are the two common ones. That is set on the keypad as well. So there might be a programming element to set, hey, we're going to set an 8-bit output for the keypad. We need to tell OnGuard how to interpret that data as it comes in. So you would set that. And then do we want to allow user commands or intrusion commands? So those are not in today's topic list, but okay. So that's down that column. Moving over one more column, the card formats. What card formats do we want to enable for this reader? So some access control systems, it's a card format that's applied across everything. In OnGuard, you can pick and choose different formats for different doors. So I could say generally across my whole building, we're going to use, we'll say 26-bit Wiegand facility code 27. Maybe when we get into a more secure part of my building, maybe it's a chemical lab or my data center or something along those lines. Maybe for that, we're going to actually use a higher security credential. Maybe we'll do something CIOS or MyFair or whatever options we want to look at. So for those, we could select additional or different credentials. We could say, let's turn on our Wiegand 20 or 72-bit. Let's turn on our H10302. You can also have multiple on each one. Now, again, remember that blue line selection versus the checkbox. We need to see the checkboxes for that to be selected. All right, let's hit OK. We have now added our first door. The first one's always the most time consuming because now we're going to use that first door to build and program the rest. So with that checked, set that line selected, I'm going to hit add. We're going to give it a name, test door 2. This is also tied to my test controller, also on the onboard, still weekend, and this is going to be reader number 1. Everything else I've pre-selected from the last one. We'll hit OK. So there's test door 2. All right, moving on down the list. Test door 3, typing in the name is the longest part. Test controller. Now, we're not on the onboard reader anymore. Now we're going to move to our 1320. And this address box, ungrade. So now we can modify this. This is the dip switch settings on the panels. So this one is address 1, reader 0. And then port is from what port am I talking out of to get to here. So I only have the one selection. We'll do that. Of course, it reset my address and reader. All right, we'll hit OK. We'll keep going. Add. So address 1, reader 1, test door 4. OK. Add. We'll increment that up 1. Set this back to 0. So we did 0. If we look at what we have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. So now we want 2, 0. Test door 5. Add. Test door 6. Okay. So 2, 1. We did 2, 0. Here's 2, 1. Test door 7. 3, 0. And test door 8 is 3, 1. And so on. Now, that's all the controllers I have, but I want to show you something else. It doesn't like it when you try to do things out of order. For example, we'll say address 5, test 9. Okay, so we'll say address 5. If I try to do reader 1, and if I don't have the reader 0, it doesn't like that. Okay, unable to add, modify the reader name test 9 because reader number 0 must be defined as the first reader with port 1, address 5. So I have to put in my 0 reader first. So that means if your doors are wired for some reason where nothing's wired into reader 1 and you've got IDF door wired into reader 2, you either have to change the wiring so that you can use that first slot, or you have to come in and program a blank door in that reader 1 slot number 0, or and then you can add the second one. So all right, so just to show you that it is a little picky about the order things are added in. Okay, but there we have test door 1 through 8. Everything's defined 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 2, 0, and so on. We can see that everything is weekend procs, everything is on board or port 1. So port 1 is from the controller. We're talking out port 1. Port 1 is the RS485 serial line. The M2220 only has one downstream serial port for downstream board communications. I believe the 3300 and the 4420 have more downstream reader ports. So there may be an instance where, depending on the board you have, the controller you have, you might need to select between port 1, port 2, port 3, or port 4. All right, we've done that. Let's jump over to alarm monitoring, see what we got. So we'll minimize this guy. We can see we've got a whole bunch of events tied to all these test doors we created. So we have a whole bunch of, we've got our 8 doors. They're currently showing status forced, status held, access mode, card only, let's see, and first card unlock mode enabled, first card unlock mode. So everything is waiting for a first card unlock. We can fix and clean some of this up. So here's where I can select multiple, and I can come and hit the check boxes on all 8 of these doors. All right, so let's say we wanted to take those and say, Yeah, maybe I don't want first card unlock on that. We'll hit OK and modify all of those all at once. This also applies, hey, let's modify our card format selection. Let's get rid of the Wiegand 72-bit. Or if you want to modify the held open or extended times. So this multiple selection checkbox and then checking the box on each of the doors will make that really quick and easy for you, really smooth. Okay, now as we go through the rest of these, so we have, we've talked about everything here on the general tab. Let's look at the grouping tab. The grouping tab is if you're going to use reader groups can be used in several different ways. One of the most common ways, though, is lockdown profiles. If I initiate this lockdown, what readers do I want affected by that? And so you would define those groups and then you assign the reader to those groups here. A reader can belong to up to 6 different groups. All right, moving across, cancel, settings, modify. Okay. During time zone, this is the setting. So during time zone, we want to mask forced open, mask held open, or we want to log all of our access granteds, access denieds, or reader status. So you can change some of the default behavior based on, or at least the default logging as what you would see in alarm monitoring. You can change that here. So if you have an office environment, and during the day when people are moving around, people prop their office doors open. You don't really care maybe about a door forced open or a door held open. You could say mask. In OnGuard, masking means pretend it didn't happen. Okay, so if I mask a forced open, we're going to, during office hours, we're going to say during office hours, I don't care if this happens, pretend it didn't happen. Mask held open, same thing during office hours. However we want to structure those, we can. Moving off to the right of this, we have some settings. If you have a door that is a read in, read out, then on that reader slot 1, that reader port 1, you're going to put one door, one of those readers, and on the reader port 2, you're going to put the other. So you want your read in and your read out to be on the same panel, on the same board. And then you're going to mark one of them primary and one of them secondary. I can't do that right now because we have 8 doors selected. It wouldn't know which to apply where. Okay. And then as we move down that list, we have 2 card control, deny on duress pin. So you can have a pin set up that is a duress pin. Somebody's under duress, they type in that pin. That can be used to allow entry, or you can say deny entry. So deny on duress pin, that's that checkbox. Assume door used. If your doors do not have status contacts on them, the DSMs, typically like a read magnet or something along those lines, that's going to report back to the system whether the door is open or closed, then you probably want to come in and check the box that says assume this door was used. Otherwise, when somebody badges in, what you get is a line that says, an event that says access granted, door not used. And so you interpret that as, well, nobody went through the door. So check the box that says assume door used if you don't have DSM modules. Enforced use limit, checkpoint, first card unlock authority required. So this is that the permissions side of it. We can say you have first card unlock function, and now we can come and say, but it requires somebody with the unlock authority, first card unlock authority to do that. So check that box. You also further down the line have, is this a turnstile? Are we doing tailgate monitoring? Alarm shunt, strike follower, asset required, double card unlock toggle, inverted strike relay, LED follows the strike, office mode. These all have different functions. And I meant to call this out earlier, I forgot, but OnGuard has help context in pretty much all of the pages you go to. So I have a help button down here on the bottom left. I can click it. It is context aware. So it knows that I'm on the settings form, or on the readers and doors settings, which is where I'm at. So it tells me it's going to define and explain what each of these things do. So if I come down to, for example, tailgate, with the tailgate option enabled on the reader, a pulse is sent to the output connected to the tailgate sensor. The tailgate hardware keeps track of how many people enter through a door and generates alarms if a violation is detected. Now, it tells you then some criteria about when this can be used and what it changes or modifies or disables. For example, a tailgate cannot be configured with an alarm shunt or strike follower because they would both use auxiliary output 1. So if you select tailgate, then alarm shunt and strike follower will be deselected and disabled. So there's some caveats to how some of these features happen, but the help guide is really good at explaining those and laying those out. So if ever you're just looking at this going, man, I can't, why is this grayed out? Why is it not working? Or what is this option again? What is inverted strike relay? You can come find it in the manual, and then you will know. Inverted strike relay, it's supported on these panels. And what it does is it is going to change the typical behavior of door strike relays, and then it shows you how that's wired. So a really great resource. Don't forget to hit the help when you get stuck. And then we have some always controls. So they kind of split this up on the two sides. I don't know why they didn't put them together, but during the time zone, we want to mask certain elements, or do we want to always mask certain elements? So you have those check boxes there for that as well. Okay, let's leave that as is, and we'll say mask during office hours, and maybe we'll just do that to the held opens and say okay, modify. We just made those setting changes across all 8 of our doors. Let's move to the controls tab. Controls is it's the inputs and outputs that are connected to this door, this reader. All right. So we have our door contact. We have our Rex. We have our strike, and then some additional things like elevators, CCTV commands, time and attendance settings, and push button modes. So the main ones you adjust here are the door contact and the Rex. What kind of door contact do we have? Is it supervised or not supervised? Is it normally open or normally closed? So when my door is closed, what is my DSM doing? My door contact doing? Is it currently in a closed state or is it in an open state? All right. So these are, again, it depends on the hardware you buy. You could have normally open or normally closed, or if they're wired with resistors, then you can have the supervision as well. So in this case, I have these wired, I believe, normally open, not supervised. And then on my Rex, same question on the Rex. How is my Rex wired? So when there's no motion at the door or my Rex button has not been pressed, what is the status of that circuit? And typically not supervised, normally open. If you can get supervised, supervision is really nice, because what supervision adds to the equation, instead of, it really is, it's just a circuit. So I have 2 points and a wire between the 2 points. If that wire is connected, if that pathway is connected, that's going to be closed. If that pathway is broken, that's open. That doesn't tell me all of the different possible scenarios. Supervision is going to add in some resistors at the edge. They don't go at the panel, they go at your door. But what that's going to do is it's going to tell you, hey, is the door open? Is it closed? is my wire shorted or did somebody cut my wire? So you get that additional information, more than just the circuit's open, the circuit's closed, which we correlate to the door is open and the door is closed. We also get is my wire, is my pathway still intact, or has somebody tampered with it? That's the benefit of supervision. All right, so in this case, not supervised, normally open for both. On the 1320s, you can't change the strike outputs. So that's that. But actually, this does bring up a good point, or a good question. Some access control systems will let you pick and choose what gets mapped where. I want my input 1 to go to this door, and it's the DSM, and input 2 is the DSM for the next door, and input 3 is the Rex for door number 1. You can map them really however you want in some access control systems, not OnGuard. OnGuard has defined a standard. So they say input 1 is going to be the door contact for door 1. Input 2 is going to be the Rex for door 1. Input 3 is an aux input. Input 4 is an aux input. And these are 1320s, so we have 2 door capabilities. Okay, so then we move down to input 5. Input 5 is going to be the door contact for door 2. Input 6 is the Rex for door 2. 7 and 8 are auxes for door 2. And so you have to wire it appropriately to the right standard in order for in order for the devices to map out correctly. All right. So we'll hit OK, modify those changes. Here's our aux inputs. So here's how we could define, like we do have, let me get out of the multi-select. Okay, we'll just modify one. So we have input 1, input 2, which are DSM and Rex. And then we have input 3, which is aux input 1, and input 4, which is aux input 2. So that's how they're labeled on the board versus how they're labeled in OnGuard. Okay, we can use those. One could be a panic button. It could be a door. You could just monitor a door that doesn't have access control, but let's just say you want to make sure that at the end of the day, all your perimeter doors are closed. So you can use those aux inputs for that purpose. Maybe it's another button of some kind. Maybe it's we already said panic alarm. It could be a ground loop. If it's we're talking about a gate, it could be a bunch of different things. Okay, so you give it a name. Are we going to mask it? Similar types of options. Are we going to mask it during a time zone? Is it going to be latching, non-latching? Are we going to add delays to the entry or exit? Are we going to do, never mask, always mask? Is it a checkpoint? How long are we going to hold that input for? Or how long are we expecting the input to hold for? And then is it supervised, not supervised, normally open, normally closed? Debounce is typically the default is good, but if you have, for example, a door where the status change between activated and deactivated, open and closed, is not very stable. Maybe you get some jitter in that. Typically, you would see that on longer cable runs. Then you can adjust some debounce values, and you can do this on the controls as well, in addition to the inputs. So you can leverage those inputs for a bunch of different things. They can be tied to doors, or you can separate them from the doors and use them as just general system inputs. Aux outputs, same thing. Okay. Outputs are typically used for like sirens or strobes. If this door is held open, do we want to set up a rule for, this siren at the door to start, sounding once the door's been held open or forced open? Draw attention to that door and to, people around it. So outputs can be used in that way as well. And let's see. Anti-passback, we'll leave that. You have, again, the same notes. So on this door, you could say door is, let's see, I have to modify first. Door let's say third, why is my caps third floor south, and whatever we want to put in there. We could put in info on like this is a crash bar with retro kit and motion Rex. You put in all the details, whatever you want to track there, you can add that in. Okay, so now let's come back to alarm monitoring, see what changes. So we have test door 1 and test door 2, which are showing card only, and they're saying held, but we're masking it. So we won't see the events show up. We see the status, but we don't see the events show up in our list. And then we have our test doors, which are also showing masked and held, but these are showing not held. We're just masking them. So if we come back and we look at test door 1 and test door 2 and go back to our controls. So not supervised, normally open, not supervised, normally open. Those are set just like all the others on the door contact. So I wonder if those inputs are actually closed for some reason on the panel, and that's why they're showing held. All right, so that is adding a door. Let me make sure I didn't skip over anything important in that. Any questions so far on anything we've covered? Okay, I'm going to keep talking just so we don't sit here awkwardly in silence, but if you do have one, drop it in the chat and we will definitely answer it. Or at least I'll do my best to answer it. Okay, next up on the list. So we've set up our system options, we've set up our cardholder options, we've created and defined our card formats. Now we have added our access panel and our doors. So we're moving our way through standing up a system. Next thing you might want to do is set up time zones now. So time zones affect when a door is unlocked, when somebody has access, or when their permissions are. They're used in a lot of different places. So, but we're going to generally use it. We've got an office hours. We've got, let's create a new one. We'll call this, maybe we're going to change our office hours. We'll call it new office hours. And maybe we'll say Monday through Thursday. And it's 0700 to, I don't know, maybe we're just going to be really easy on ourselves. We'll say 1400 hours. Okay, so start 7 a.m. End. Yes, I still need to put that in. Okay, so my end time, I'm saying 1400 hours, which is 2 p.m. The way that OnGuard works is that it's leveraging both the leading edge and the trailing edge of the time, of the minute, of the second, whatever the context is. So if I just come in and put in 1400 hours, which is 2 p.m., then if this is tied to, for example, a door unlock schedule, then my door will unlock at 7 a.m. and it will stay locked. Okay, so we'll have 1:59 p.m. it's unlocked, and we'll get 2 p.m. and it's unlocked, 2 p.m. and 30 seconds and it's unlocked, and it will stay unlocked all the way up until the trailing end of the minute. So 2:00:59, 2 p.m. and 59 seconds, and the door will still be unlocked. So the door won't actually relock until 14:01. So if you want it to end right at the right time, then we need to dial this back 1 minute, because it's going to be 13:59, 2:59, and 59 seconds is when it will end. And then right at the 2 p.m. is when the door will relock. All right. So what days? Monday, we said Monday through Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay. And that's our time zone. we've covered pretty extensively time zones, holidays in the past, so I don't want to re-dig into that now. If that's something that you need refreshers on, check out our YouTube channel. Subscribe. There's at least 2, maybe 3 videos where we talk about those items in OnGuard. Okay, so let's see. We created a time zone. Now, if we move to access levels. So access control, access levels. And here is our list of existing access levels. We can create a new one. So we'll say add. Okay, needs a name. We could call this general building access. Maybe this is the access level that gets us into the building, but not into any of the secure or sensitive areas. You define these, to what makes most sense for you. One thing I do want to point out though, you don't need 100 different unique access levels. Access levels can be stacked. So you can have a general access level. This is generally going to get me into the building. And then you can have one that is just the IT doors, so IT access. You can have another one that is going to get me into the secure storage room. Whatever the layout is, I can build that off of 3 access levels. I don't need an access level for IT. That's going to be the exterior doors and the IT doors and their storage room. And then I also need one for my administrative staff, and that's going to be everything. And then there's one for the, whatever other department, shipping and receiving, that's just general building access. And then somebody else that's just, you don't have to do individual access levels like in a role-based situation. I find that if you build them based on the areas, what is this going to get me into? And then when you start assigning them to users, you can stack them. All right. So we'll do general building access. Okay. Now we need to tell it what readers we want. So let's say general building access is going to be test door 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See the checkboxes again? Control clicking to turn them blue is not what we want to do. If I do this, say always, drag them over, you'll notice it only grabbed 1 through 5. It did not grab 7, 8, or whatever. All right. Remove those. All right, so we'll do 1 through 5 as general building access. So they're checked. We're going to say only during our new office hours, and click the arrow to put those into our access level. Okay, so that's our general building access. We'll say OK. And that one is now saved. General building access. So now, if we wanted to add another one, let's call this secure storage rooms. Or maybe IDF. So in this one, we could say our secure storage rooms, maybe that's just 7 and 8. And office hours again. Okay. Maybe we do another one that is IT closets. Now our IT closets, so we'll say, well actually I'll pick my actual IDF readers, and we'll say always, because we don't want to lock out IT if there's an after hours emergency, right? We want them to be able to get in. Okay, but that does bring up a point. So our general building access, which we would grant to our IT, would only have access during office hours. So what we would want to do is we'd want to come and say, general building access during office hours. You start to build these and name them with the time spec as part of that as well. So now what we do another one. We're going to have this one selected. We'll say add. No, it didn't pre-select those. I hoped it would. We can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to call this general building access always. We say always add and OK. So just by doing a couple kind of generic area focused, we have 4 that we created. We've got general building access always, which would be our administrative staff or IT teams. We've got a during office hours, which is going to generally be most of our, the pretty much everyone else. IT closets. Let's see, did not hit the arrow to drag those over. So always arrow, there they are, and then hit OK. And yes, this is just a pop-up that says modifying this access level will affect all card holders that have this access level. Do you want to continue? Yes. All right, so we've got those 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now as we assign them to people, we can layer them. Okay. All right, so let's move on to that next step. So we've built some access levels. And I'll show you how to do some bulk things here as well, but let's jump over to cardholders, administration, cardholders. And we're going to add a cardholder. Come on. There it goes. So in cardholders, before we add something, there is a search button down here. And when I hit search, all my fields become enabled, and I can now search for any one of these fields. So we'll add somebody in first, so we have somebody to actually look at. So we'll say, we'll use, I need a name. We'll use, need a theme for today. We'll use Iron Man. First name Iron, last name Man, cardholder ID. What was it? Love you there and back 3,000 or 3 million. It's been a while since I've seen the movie. Badge type, we'll make him a employee, and we'll say we'll leave that. Okay, so that's the cardholder tab is like everything about the person, contact information, what department are they in, how do we get a hold of them, where's their office. Badge type is a definable, this is your badge layout, and with this layout also comes this selection, this pre-selection of access levels. You'll see this pre-populate here in a minute. So badge, okay, there's that cardholder ID if you reference all the way back to the badge ID allocation where we had the option to say cardholder ID. But badge ID is what's actually on the card. So we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll make a random badge. It's active. We have activation dates, deactivation dates in the status. Here's that list that we modified at the beginning where we have expired, deactivation date, or expired, not used. So we want this one to be active, of course. All right. PIN. Do we have a PIN for this? 5222. And do we want to use those extended times or not, those held times? Okay. All right. So that's the gist of what you would do here. Access levels. So see how all doors except IDF, always no lockdown bypass, is already pre-selected? That's because that's what the Stone employee badge type dictates. Now I can come in and modify it. I can uncheck it. Let's say I don't work in IT. I'm just a normal guy. So we're going to say you get secure general building access during office hours. And if I work in warehousing, maybe I also need the secure storage rooms. So we can say, okay. And there's my permissions. We can go back and look at that. So access levels, here's my badge. Here's the access levels. I don't have activation or deactivation dates, so they're good to go indefinitely. All right, we can go, I can modify if needed. We can add activation dates, access groups, or whatever else we need. Let's say I transition to IT. So now we're going to change this, add IT closets, and add the always. And now I have those two permissions. I can't get into the storage rooms, so maybe we need to change that, add in the storage rooms, and I can get storage rooms now. So you can layer your access levels. You don't necessarily need like here's my executives, here's my HR, here's my IT. You build them based on the areas. I think that really is a better solution. And then what you can do is you take those areas and you can define groups. So you group them together based on like, hey, here's my executive team. My executive team needs this selection of access levels. And then what you do is you're selecting the group instead of the individual access levels. So that's under groups here, where now we say device groups. Let's see here. No, that's not. Yeah, I think it's under groups, this groups. I could be misleading you though. Access levels, is it under access? Nope, access groups, it's here. So Stone staff, all doors. We could do another one. We could call it executive staff. And here we get our IT. No, we'll do general always and secure storage, whatever else you want to give them, and hit OK. And there's that one. So on the access levels, let's go back to our card holders. Let's hit modify. So if we hit access groups, here's that group. We can say select. Are you sure you wish to select the 2 levels from access group executive staff? Yes. And those were already here. We'll uncheck those. We'll do it again. Executive staff, select, yes. And now it's selected those 2. So you can build those in groups for quick selection. Okay, you can also, you're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. We'll make this really quick. Under the badge types, okay, so here's my Stone employee badge. Let me hit modify. The default access group, here's the Stone staff, here's executive staff. So I could change this to executive staff, and then it would pre-select those just by making that badge type selection. This also pairs to the front badge layout and the back badge, the rear badge layout as well as some defaults based on how long that's valid for, that badge is valid for by default, 1 year, 5 years, or a specific date. Maybe you make everything expire at the end of the year, printing and coding, and a whole bunch of other options. So again, like I said, a rabbit hole, but back to where we were at with the access levels. So that was just adding in one person and modifying it. Let's go back to Cardholder and let's add in let's add in, we'll do Alaska. Okay. All right, so let's do another one. So we'll add in Spider-Man, last name Man, first name Spider. If I were really being nerdy, I'd put in, their actual real names. But so we'll say state. What I'm doing is I'm just going to create really quickly some people. Let's see. He needs a badge. We'll add a badge to give it some random numbers. Badge type is required. He's an employee. Okay. And no access levels. We'll do one more. Nope. Got to go back. Card holder. Add. And Thor. Thor only has a last name. So state. This is going somewhere, I promise. So just bear with me for one more moment. Stone employee, badge, another random number, and okay with no access levels. Oh, it did. Anyway, that's fine. Okay, so if we do a search, and now I can search for Alaska, it's going to return 3 results. Anything that matches Alaska, because we searched in the state field, and we've got the 3 card holders that we created. Now that I have done a search and I have results, now we can go to card holder, bulk, and assign access levels, remove access levels, modify badges, issue mobile badges, delete card holders in the search, or I can view a log. There's some other options here that are grayed out. The selection will change and adjust based on what you have selected and what's capable. So in my case, let's assign access levels. Okay, what do we want to assign? I can check the individual ones. So let's say across all the new people, I've got everybody in my system. I just created a new access level and I want to assign that new access level to all those people. So let's just say we're going to add in exterior doors. Maybe this is a new building or a new wing, or we just added access control to an area, as well as IT closet. We'll do secure storage rooms. Okay. I can also, if I wanted to, just select, again, my access level group. So groups can be really powerful. Do we want activation dates? Yes, no. We can set those. And now I say OK. We have options for overwrite active date or delete existing access levels. So we can say get rid of everything except for these bulk ones that we're now adding. Hit OK. Okay, and now it's going to tell us the 2 access levels you have selected will be added to all active badges belonging to the 3 card holders found in your current search. It's summarizing what it's about to do. Once this process is started, it cannot be undone for card holders that are already processed. Are you sure you wish to continue? Yes. And it will run through those, process them. We only did 3, it didn't take very long. If you're doing 100, it'll take, a couple seconds, 15, 20, 30 seconds, whatever. If you're doing 1,000, it'll take a minute or so, a couple minutes. But now it's giving us a summary. 3 card holders were processed, 3 badges for 3 card holders were actually affected with 0 failures and complete. And you can scroll up and see other times where I've done bulk with failures or no failures. And okay. So now if we come to our access levels, so everybody should have, which ones did we select? The general building and secure storage rooms. So everybody should have those. No, sorry, I did exterior doors. Exterior doors and storage rooms. So exterior doors, storage rooms, exterior doors, storage rooms, exterior doors, storage rooms, they're all there. So that's an easy way to do that in bulk. We can do it in reverse. So let's go card holder, bulk. We still have those 3 people from our search. If I needed to expand that, say do it based on a department, everybody in this department, we're going to modify your access levels. You can do that. So we'll just stick with this existing search, card holder, bulk, remove access levels. Let's take away from everybody this exterior doors and okay, yes, there's our summary and okay. And now if I go through it, reload them, that exterior doors is now gone from everybody. Okay, well that is pretty much what I wanted to cover. We've got 5 minutes left. If you've got questions, now's the time to drop those. While I'm waiting for you to do that, if you've got any, I want to show you one other element. Many of you have probably seen this before, but this is the OnGuard integration into Milestone, where we take OnGuard data and we push it into Milestone. And what we get from this is this view where we have our camera tied with our doors. And so we have the access control paired with our video, where in one click, we can quickly jump back and forth between the different people. Now, when we get this, we could say, hey, this photo, which is coming from my OnGuard system, doesn't match this person in my video. We can hit search, and it's going to jump us over to the access control tab, pre-fill our search for that person, and now I can see this person all throughout the rest of the property, everything that badge has been done. So it's a really easy, quick way to do some investigations in terms of somebody lost their badge, but I'm seeing it being scanned now. Who was it? Where did they go? Hey, why is this person showing up at 4 a.m. every morning? What are they doing? Who is it? It's a great way to pair that information together. So, okay. Well, I haven't seen any other questions come up in the chat, so guess we covered what we needed to and hopefully explained everything well. Thank you very much for joining and attending. We really appreciate it. We hope that it has been valuable and insightful to you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. If there's topics that you want us to cover in the future, we comments on our YouTube channel like, hey, can you show us how this happens? That's been great feedback for me because I can use that to tailor different things. Drop it there. Or if you want to send an email to our sales or support or to myself, reach out, tell us what you want us to do our trainings on, and we hope you enjoy it. Hope it was informative, and look for this. It takes me about a week amidst everything else that I'm trying to squeeze in to get this uploaded to YouTube. So middle of next week, check in. If you're subscribed, you'll get the notification and you'll see it. But we hope to see you then. Thanks for coming. See you next time.